The number one question that I get from absolutely every buyer that reaches out, whether it's on our YouTube channel, whether it is somebody who calls us for marketing, whether it's somebody who calls us like directly and they're, been referred to us by somebody, they all want to know why prices aren't down further from all the stuff that they hear on the news, right? You hear on the news that like the condo market, as an example, is unbelievably terrible. It's so hard. Realtors, there was an article came out the other day, realtors turning down listing properties. Did you see that one?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
They said, I'm not taking overpriced listings anymore," or "I'm not taking, these condo listings."
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Did you read the comments?
Ah, I I think I read one and I said, "I can't do the negativity today."
Well, you can imagine where the comments went,
Yeah.
right? It was certainly pretty interesting, but
Mhm.
you've got all this news media saying that the market is challenging right now. So people, naturally they associate that with price drops, right? They think the sky's on fire and naturally they kind of freeze,
Mhm.
right? So what I wanted to do in today's video, because you've got the stats right there,
I
and I actually think we should talk about the stats first today.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, but the reason I wanna do that, there's 2 things I wanna kinda cover in today's video, and I think they're gonna be really interesting for everybody watching or listening if they're listening on the podcast or watching
Mhm.
this on YouTube. So, the first thing I wanna talk about is why prices don't always move as quickly down as they do up.
Mm.
There's a great saying that when prices change, when they go up, they take the elevator, and when they go down, they take the stairs.
Yeah.
Why? Right? So, I wanna talk a little bit about that today. The other thing I wanna talk about is this famous word that we love in British Columbia. Let's see if you can do word association. Market.
Crash.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, it is love to be thrown out there, okay? I it loves to be thrown out there by people typically who don't own real estate, and probably will never own real estate because of just their mentality around where prices are. Now, maybe that's not true, I don't know. But I wanna talk about what a market crash is, and I wanna talk about what a market crash isn't, because I think there's a lot of confusion and people have no idea. They're gonna have their opinions. Doesn't mean what we're gonna say is gospel, but let's just be real about it, and people can leave comments in the description of the video, whether they agree with us or not, right? Totally cool.
Clarity is key.
Clarity is key. Let's so I think we should talk about that. But first, why are we even here? Well, we're here to talk about real estate.
Yes. And then next beer.
Now, this is an interesting one. What's this?
So this is the Ultra Fox by Parallel 49. So one of my favorite breweries in Vancouver, and of course widely available at every liquor store that's pretty much all across BC
I
or the Lower
love
Mainland.
Parallel 49.
I'm the same.
Parallel 49, if you're watching, we will exclusively drink Parallel 49.
If you want to sponsor, if you
Or we'll just grab whatever looks interesting at the liquor store. But this one did because it's got a really cool picture of Ultra Fox. That looks like the Fox from Star Fox games back in the day.
yeah, and also from Guardians of the Galaxy as well.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah. No coast.
But I like yours because you went into nostalgia, and I used to love Star Fox 64.
Star Fox 60.
Comment down below if you're a retro gamer.
It was a good one. Okay,
Sure.
let's jump into it. So what are the stats say? What's going on?
All right, so we'll start in the 3-month change. So in the short term, 3 months, in apartments in the Lower Mainland, minus 0.5%, and in the Fraser Valley, minus 1%. So we're still seeing negatives in the 3-month. We go into townhomes next. So it's minus 0.1% in the Lower Mainland, but we're positive in the Fraser Valley at 0.4. So minimal gains in the townhome.
Townhomes seem to be one of the markets that's doing something right now. Yeah.
I'd say so too. Now, detached collectively, you're including the lower values, so the million to 1.2. Those I feel anecdotally are actually quite busy.
Yeah.
Those are your entry level detached homes that some of the families that are going, we've outgrown the 3 or 4 bed townhomes. We want to get into the entry level detached. That 1 to 1.2 is actually still quite, I'll say, still quite moving. There's still a bit of optimism there.
Yeah.
Where we're seeing the slowdown is at anything plus 1.6 or
Well, I would actually challenge that. I think entry level anywhere is still busy. So like for a detached home, because the rungs on the property ladder have been so stretched out, right? Going from like a townhouse to a detached. So I'm really finding in my travels anyway that it's the entry level in whatever neighborhood, whatever value that is to get into it,
Yeah.
is still relatively busy. I say so too. Yeah. Okay.
And then so we're still seeing negatives in those two areas. So in Lower Mainland and Fraser Valley board for the detach in general.
Okay.
So
Okay. And they're down what, sorry?
minus 1.4 in the Lower Mainland and minus 1.2 in the Fraser Valley.
So generally nothing really above 1.5 in the last 3 months.
That's right.
Seems like everything. Okay. What about the last 12?
So last year, this is where the numbers might be a little bit more oh yeah, we'll say
Shocking numbers.
shocking numbers. So apartments in the Lower Mainland were minus 2.6% year over year, and in the Fraser Valley, the biggest drop on this list at minus 4%.
And that's for condos.
That's correct.
That does not surprise me one bit.
No, and if anyone is out there looking at homes currently selling their homes, they're feeling it too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. Townhomes, Lower Mainland, we're at minus 2.8%, and in the Fraser Valley, minus 2.5%.
Okay.
And then to round it home, detached homes in the last year, minus 2.8% in the Lower Mainland and minus 3.2 in the Fraser Valley.
So, you know what I feel is interesting about these numbers, because those are a lot higher than the last couple months. We hit a peak of the market for 2024, and it was in April, May, and June of last year. So the sales were climbing, the prices were climbing at that time, and then they slowly started coming down since the spring of 2024. So I think one of the reasons we're seeing those year over years is just this point in time is just because of what was happening in 2024. Yeah. So that's what I would kind of assume is one of the reasons that we're seeing those year over year, because that's much bigger than it was in the previous like last time we did this last month. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But certainly very interesting. That beer is delicious. But it is very good. Okay. So let's talk about two things, because I think this is going to be very interesting for a lot of people. Why does the market not move the way that they wanted to? So we talked about condominiums, for what you hear on the news, for how bad condominiums are, and Wally, Surrey Center, North Surrey, that area specifically is one area that's being called out. But it's not just unique to Surrey. It's happening in Vancouver. It's happening in Toronto. Like there's many markets across Canada this is happening to. So why do prices not drop as fast as they go up? So we've seen prices go up super, super fast in, busy markets like COVID market as an example. We've been in this challenged market condition for about 3 years now.
Yeah.
Right? It's been a while. It's like since the Bank of Canada started adjusting rates, right?
Yeah, which would have been spring of 2022.
That's right. Yeah.
Because the market was pretty much, you couldn't put it out with a fire hose from the end of 2021 into the beginning of 2020.
It was wild.
It was.
It was wild. Yeah. So this is my kind of timeline, or like, the version of events on how things really kind of play out. So whether it's mortgage rates or lots of inventory, or the media can really spark these things as well. What tends to happen when prices stagnate or they don't move quite as quickly is buyers, they really freeze, right? I think people assume that buyers freezing and having inaction towards buying a home equates to price drops. And it can, but it doesn't necessarily relate to that immediately. What it more so relates to is just really the sales volume slowing down, which is exactly what we're experiencing right now, right? And actually, we did have an uptake in sales month over month for the month that we just got out of. So it doesn't always have a correlation to values right away anyways, because buyers are just sitting there. And it's not to say that they're not going to buy, but they're just saying, hey, I'm going to see how this all plays out. Okay. So they're just waiting to see what happens. You've also got the seller psychology of things. So what is the number one thing that we hear when we're pricing out sellers' properties? It's like old war stories, right? Like I could have, should have, I could have got
XYZ. I could have got a Porsche.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Porsche compared to the Honda Civic that you're.
Yeah. So I could have sold my house for $2.5 million in 2022 at the peak, and now it's only worth 2.2 or whatever that might be. They don't like sellers. They don't like when the high water mark has been set and then the tide's gone down, right? And a lot of them have a really, really tough time swallowing that. And so what happens is they've been anchored on what they think they could have got at a time. And oftentimes they just refuse to sell for that. That's where another kind of psychology piece comes in, loss aversion. If you had a home where you thought it was worth 2.5 million and now it's worth 2.2, you think you've lost $300,000. Now, maybe you paid $2.5 million, and that might be true in that case. But if it was worth 2.5 at one point and it wasn't for sale or didn't sell at that time, and now it's worth 2.2 and it's not for sale and you didn't sell at that time, you haven't really lost anything. You still have the same asset that you have or had.
Mhm.
It's just not going to sell for as much, but you didn't lose anything because you never had it.
Exactly, and the point where you purchased it too, it's kinda like stocks, right? It's the same thing, it goes super high, and then it goes super low, and you go, "I lost 50," and you said, "Well, do you still have those stocks?" I said, "Yes," and then it's like, "Well, you didn't lose it."
Right.
It's just the value of that stock has gone down, but you didn't lose nothing until you actualize it, where you sell it.
That's right. So yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. And you still got the assets. So you've got this high watermark that's been set. And so sellers have a really, really tough time wrapping their heads around this sometimes. So this is where we get to a point where I have this conversation with our listings all the time. There's only two types of sellers in my books. There's sellers who are committed and there's sellers who are interested.
Hmm.
Sellers who are interested, they wanna put their place on the market. They wanna see what happens. They wanna see how the market receives it. You know, they all think their home is special, and some of them are, but a lot of the times they're very commonly similar to everything else that's on the market, right? But they wanna put their home on the market and see what happens, right? If it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, no harm, no foul.
They let
Doesn't
stay.
matter, right? That is a much different seller than a seller who is committed. Right? So a seller who's committed to selling their home, they're going to do everything they need to do in their power to put their home in a position to actually have it transact. So those types of people, they're maybe a little bit more rare, right? I mean, what are some examples that you run into of people who would be in a committed situation to sell their house?
Yeah, be someone who either has a purchase lined up on the one side, let's say they're
So they found something like beautiful that they want to.
yeah, and they're like, "This is a home that we cannot do without," and it's you almost have to see what is holding them back from getting there. And I mean, we go through this where it's like we often ask, like, let's throw a random number, 5,000. Is 5,000 that number that is going to keep you from your next goal? The number could be a 10.
Oh, meaning they would take $5,000 or $10,000.
Yes, off the sale to make it or happen on the purchase, or maybe they're moving out of town and it's a job, or if there was a death in the family and there's they want to get as much for their retirement fund. So it's something that is
Big life changes.
yeah, usually is kind of what we found.
Yeah. Yeah, someone's having a baby, starting a family, yeah, job change, job loss, death in the family, separation, right?
Yeah.
So those or they just have to your first point, they have a really driving want or a need, right? They've outgrown their space, and it's just like, we said we've been in a challenging market for 3 years. Well, how long do you wait? It's your life. You can stay in that little two-bedroom condo with a family of 4 as long as you want, but how long do you put it on hold for? You're also selling for less. You're gonna buy for less.
Exactly.
That's a whole other conversation, right? But, so that's the difference between a committed seller and an interested seller, right? So most of the sellers on the market, they're interested, but they're certainly not putting themselves into a position where they're committed, and that might be a financial constraint. Maybe they've, the over leveraged their property, got lines of credit on it. Who knows, right? There's lots of reasons for that, but they're not committed to it. They're interested in it, right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of part and parcel of it. And then I think the other thing too is like people really misunderstand mortgages. They think that houses are liquid, like you day trade them,
Mm.
right? That's what I love about the market crash people. And we're going to talk about market crash in a sec. But like market crash people love to say, oh, I could have sold 3 months later for this or that or whatever, right? You are not day trading a house.
No.
That is not the point or the purpose of having real estate. So mortgages, they are secure. They're very, very slow moving and they're very, very long term, right? So somebody's house price fluctuates over the course of 5 years. They really only care about what they bought it for, what they sold it for, and all that noise in between doesn't really matter,
Mm.
right? I don't think that gets enough appreciation from the people that are waiting for this market crash. So a lot of people, if they don't feel that they're going to get the value that they want for their house today, they'll ride it out.
Mm.
They'll ride the dip, right? These reasons are why prices are a lot stickier going down than they are going up, right? Everybody jumps on the bandwagon when they're going up. Yep. Right. But when they're going down, you've got that very, very few that are committed to the process that'll put themselves in a position to be the best on the market. But everybody else who's just somewhat interested, has got reasons that they can't drop their price, or maybe they just can't wrap their head around it. That's a lot of the listings out there. And that's what's going to cause the prices to stay stickier. So that's why it doesn't move down quite as much.
There you go. Said, very well said.
Well, that's what I think anyway. I mean,
And what do we know?
right? What do we know? I think of it like a concert. You imagine your favorite bands in town, and everybody's lined up at the door, like trying to get in. This is a busy market, right? Like, so everyone's trying to get in. They're pushing each other to try and get into the beer line, right? To get a nice tasty drink.
Apparel 49.
A Parallel 49, yes. Send Fiat. However, you get to the concert, it's lackluster. It's boring. Your favorite vocalist, or the favorite guitar player didn't even show up, and people are just slowly leaving.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the market we're in, right?
They may come for the band, but when they realize that your favorite part or the favorite thing of the band is not there exactly, they may stay, they may hang around.
Yeah, and they're not gonna crowd the exit.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be a trickle.
Yeah.
Right.
One, you hear your favorite song and you just, okay, I'm done. I got my value worth, and I'm
100%. So that's one of the reasons where the prices do what they do, in my opinion, anyway. I want to talk about market crash. I love the comments on our YouTube videos about market crashes. I love them. I love them so much. And I would love to know, for the people that make the comments, do they own real estate? Or are they just, I always want to say they're sitting in someone's basement, and I don't want to say that out of respect to them, even though it's funny. Yeah. But do they own real estate? Do they have any intention on buying real estate? And do they even know what the heck they're talking about? Okay. So we can't cover all that today. Okay. But what we can cover is, what is a market crash? Okay. I think that's a really interesting discussion. People like to say the market is going to crash. They love to be the predictors of the future, or the market's crashing. Well, what is a crash? How long is a crash? How do you know the market has crashed? Very, very interesting things to think about. Okay. What would you say market crash is?
From a realtor perspective, 5-10%. Like, we're talking like not a ton off. But so if we're playing the assuming game, picture me as one of the basement dwellers, we'll call them. I'm thinking that prices are gonna be cut in half, or it's gonna be a 1% mortgage.
You're thinking like 30% drops.
Like, I'm thinking like it is call it not just a home run, but we're calling it a grand slam. That's what I'm calling.
Right.
So you're getting 4 points off, or like 30% off. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking.
Okay. So whatever your definition is of a market crash is fine, right? Like, to each their own. But if we can't define it, you can't just keep, spewing.
Yeah.
Spewing. You can't keep spewing out this market crash thing, because people have been doing that since like the early 2000s, right? So we have had market crashes, I would say.
Yeah.
We had a market crash of the financial crisis.
Yep.
Very, very quick one. I believe it recovered in about 9 months. So from top to bottom to top, 9 months. We also had the COVID crash. Okay. So it recovered, not quite, it didn't come back to the same value, but it went down quite a bit, and it probably recovered about 2/3 of what it went down in a relatively short period of time as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So those are two situations where I would deem them a crash. Okay. But here's my anticipation, or my interpretation rather, what a crash is. Speed. Okay. So how fast does it happen? Okay. So, and how far does it go? So for me, a crash, 2008, 2022, that was quick. Bang, like that. Happened in the course of a couple months, right?
Yeah.
Like, we were seeing, I remember there was a house in Fleetwood we sold, had the buyer didn't complete on it, unfortunately. We had to resell it. I remember looking at the numbers at that time. It was shedding $60,000 a month, houses in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
That is a crash.
And that's after we were chasing 50,000 plus per month in that entire end of 2021.
It was wild.
So
So what are the numbers and how fast are they moving? So like a crash is not a correction over the course of a few years that goes up and down and up and down and up and down. That's not a crash, right?
No.
We're talking about big numbers, short amount of time.
Correct.
I would say anywhere between 10 to 30%.
Yeah.
Okay. We are not down 10% on anything. I think in the last 3 months, the biggest one was 1.5, and the biggest one year over year was about
Condo.
just under 3. Is that right?
4%.
4%.
Yeah, 4% for condos, but I mean everyone can feel that. So it's been so the lowest that you're looking at is at -4%.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. And again, we were at a peak at this time last year, so that's likely the reason.
Totally.
Okay. The second one is the scale of which the crash occurs. So scale, what I mean by that is everybody is impacted the same. You can see by your numbers there that is not the case,
Mhm.
right? So why are townhomes in South Surrey performing well? They're actually in a seller's market condition, whereas condominiums in Central City or Wally are deep, deep, deep into a buyer's
Yeah.
market.
Exactly.
Very, very different markets. Not, 30-minute drive, but they're not being affected the same. Okay. Actually, townhomes, generally speaking, are doing relatively well all over the lower mainland, right? Detached homes, most of them, if they're appropriately priced, aren't that bad, right? Condominiums are struggling in most areas. Fair enough. But everything should be affected relatively the same. That is not the case right now.
No.
Right? Um, Volume spike. So this is one thing I think that we could agree on that's happening right now. Volume spike. We've got more listings on the market right now than we've had in, I think, over 10 years.
Yeah. In the last decade.
Which is great to be a buyer. I mean, geez, they've been wishing for that for forever, right? So you've got more volume, you have more people wanting to sell their homes, and you've got less people buying them. That's a volume spike. There's lots available, which is great. Here's the other thing that I don't agree with defining a crash is fear overtakes logic. Emotion overtakes logic. I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing people dumping their properties because they think they're going to be worth 5% less 2 months from now or a year from now. I don't see that.
Yeah.
Right. We've seen fluctuations in price throughout the last 12 months. We've hit a point where it was high 12 months ago, but there's a lot of story in between that, right? Depending on where you hit it. It's important to understand what a crash is. It's important to understand what a crash is not. And the goal of talking about this was to really give people a little bit of comfort, those that maybe are considering selling their home. Yeah, prices are maybe a little bit down, but that's a small amount, right?
Mhm.
Like we're nothing to be concerned about. For the buyers who have been sitting on the fence, they can sit on the fence as long as they want. I mean, that's totally fine. I guess, my standpoint is when it changes, it does change quickly. And you do never know where the bottom truly is until it's too late, right? So you've got all the inventory you could ever want for most types of products right now. The sellers have been on the market a little bit. They're getting a little bit squirrely, and there's some good deals to be had out there right now.
Totally.
What's it going to take to change the market? Maybe another rate cut. I mean, we just had a rate announcement where they didn't cut the rate.
Yeah. Where they stayed flat at 2.75. So
Which, I'm not an economist, but I think it was a responsible thing to do, to be honest. I would love for them to have cut the rate and
100%.
sold more houses, right? But I think that was a responsible thing for them to do, whether people agree with that or not. But will we maybe get a rate cut later this year? Maybe,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's a lot of economists saying it, but will one more rate cut
Be the deciding factor.
yeah, could it push people in the market? I don't know, right? Historically speaking, rates are over the last 40 years, they are at an absolute bargain right now. And we're not, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. We're not getting back to COVID mortgage rates. We're not getting back to 1.5% 5-year fix. It's not happening.
Something's got to happen drastically for that to happen again.
Unless,
And someone's going to rewind this.
Yeah, and they're like, I told you so.
yeah,
17.39.
when something crazy happens in the world, I mean, fairly enough, there's always lots of crazy stuff. So anyways, I thought that was a fun discussion today. Let's define what a market crash is. Let's talk about why the market doesn't move as quickly. Those are some really interesting numbers, and we'll have to monitor those to see what happens over the course of, the next couple months. But properties are moving. The phones are ringing a lot more than they were in the last little bit. We talked a lot about getting a late spring market. market, and I'm a pretty big believer that Q3 and Q4 are going to be pretty decent months compared to or quarters compared to Q1 and Q2. And I think we all know why Q2 and Q1 were, I don't want to swear,
Yeah.
but there's one person who I have in mind.
Yes. And they
And
don't.
with that magic T word,
Yeah.
that usually gets thrown around too. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that's how we wrap it up. You got something to say to everyone else? Everyone who's watching?
You know what? If you have questions about your own situation, whether it's us or your own real estate professional, reach out and have a direct conversation. That's the way to understand it. You know, as we just addressed in today's video or podcast, wherever you are, there's micro markets. It's different for every type of property in different neighborhoods, and you just need the right advice. So get the right advice and you'll be good.
Yeah, it's not painted with a brush. Exactly.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. What about you?
treat everyone with kindness. Just like I say each. Oh, I think there was a third the third in a row. But you know what? I'm a firm believer of it as well. And especially to sellers, hang on. It will get better. Sometimes it feels like it won't. It will get better. And buyers, if you're on the fence, we gotta go. We gotta go. So
And I'll tell those buyers and those sellers, when you're reading about real estate getting busy or prices going up in the news, sorry, you have already missed the boat. It's already too late. They are 3 to 6 months behind what's really happening.
That's right.
so get in.
Right now. We did say the phones have been real, boyer.
All right. We'll see you next month.
Sounds good, brother.
Cheers.
Yeah.